So I'm looking forward to this conversation. And again, a reminder, as Mark pointed out earlier, we have the QR code. So take your phones out, scan it. And we do want to make this conversation interactive. We want to know what's on your mind. So please feel free to send us questions, and we'll try to get to as many of your questions as we can. So we're spending this morning talking about FDI to the region. And I thought we'd begin by showing this chart, just so that everyone has some background and some context on where we stand with FDI, and you all can see it right here. So while you look at that, Sir Sherard, I wanted to begin by coming to you first. Both as a diplomat and as a business leader, you have a ton of experience in this region. And over the last, say, 5 years, last couple of years, we've had some extraordinary world events which have really reshaped the global order. How has the GCC's position in the world changed, if you think it has? And how does this play into the region's ability to attract FDI?
Well, Mallika, what's happened is that the GCC's importance has become even greater than ever. Because of the effect on oil prices of the Ukraine war, because of the tilt in the global economy towards the East, the role of the GCC as a connector between East and West is more important than ever. And in particular, Oman's role as the connector between the Middle East and the East. The minister has given us all sorts of extraordinary facts about Oman, but I want to ask, how many of you in this audience have actually been to Oman? Well, not enough. You all need to go out there. You need to go out there on holiday. Forget all this nonsense about due diligence. Just go out there and see for yourselves what a wonderful country it is that connects this great region, the great economy of Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, now by road, soon by rail, already by air, already by sea, with the world to the east, as well as the world to the south and the west. Now, with us today, Arwa al-Balushi is just taking a photograph of me. Stand up. She's the investment attaché at the Oman Embassy in London. And then, skulking modestly at the back, is Michael Eiley, who's the Director of Trade and Investment at the British Embassy in Oman. So go out and stay at the achingly cool W Hotel or the Shangri-La or the Chedi or wherever it may be. But before you go and see Arwa here and see Michael there, and then go and see Saleh Zakwani, my friend, who is my opposite number, chairing the Oman British Friendship Association, which is the Oman wing of the Business Council between these two great countries.
We should have had you on the tourism panel.
The wrong one.
No,
Sheridan's making a live audition to go on the next tourism industry.
Because I was ambassador in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
I know the Gulf. The great global bank for which I work makes more money in the Gulf than it makes in China. Mm-hmm. And that's a measure of the importance of this region. And I'm here because I believe in Oman. I believe that Oman is the most wonderful country. It is an Arab country with British characteristics. That means people think British, they're educated in Britain, they have British standards of efficiency, above all, British standards of openness and tolerance. So I've said my piece, and I'm just delighted to see so many enthusiasts. And those of you who haven't been to Oman, book a wonderful flight. There's Sir John Chipman there, already thinking of getting on Oman Air, flying first class out to Oman very shortly, because he will be part of that connectivity between Oman, the Arab world, and the world to the east.
Well, the extraordinary events of the last couple of years, obviously I'm alluding to, talking about the pandemic and talking about the war in Ukraine. And Lisa, let me come to you. I was wondering if you could weigh in and tell me how you think both these in particular, the war in Ukraine and the pandemic, have reshaped the GCC's importance, if you think it has.
Well, I think absolutely, in terms of the role of the region in the global economy and the increasing importance of the role in the region in the global economy. I think also the diversification of the investment opportunities. When we hear from the global investor community, they're very excited about the future of Oman, the future of the Gulf region, to present investment opportunities, not just in traditional areas, but looking at, as His Excellency mentioned, going green, hydrogen, where are the new opportunities to shape the new economy and the world order? And I think Oman and the Gulf's role in that will be incredibly important.
I want to talk about oil prices, because obviously that's been a big factor, especially as a result of what happened in Ukraine. If we can take a chart again, now you can see we had a windfall in 2022. Oil prices have come off quite a bit since then. So with this background, Ravi, I wanted to come to you and ask you, how is the movement in oil prices? What does this mean for GCC countries, given we are seeing a slight softening in oil prices again?
Yeah, we've seen a significant amount of volatility over the last few years on the oil side. So first we had the COVID collapse, then we had a big rebound, and then of course the war in Ukraine, and that led to an even further spike where oil went, around $130. And then actually with a relatively soft growth in China, we're actually been seeing an easing of the oil price. So it's been very volatile, to say the least. So that's that's an aspect that the GCC has been dealing with all along. Right. But in this new dynamics, it's becoming even more complicated. For example, we have now, OPEC has firmly morphed into OPEC Plus, of which Russia is a key member alongside Saudi Arabia. But that has to be balanced with traditional alliances with the US as the security guarantor for the region. And then that has also to be balanced with the fact that the emerging largest consumer of oil is China. So, the GCC finds itself trying to balance all these forces in the wake of the new reality, which is, the divide between Russia, China on one hand, and the Western powers on the other, tied to issues in Ukraine. So, this is the reality on the ground, and the GCC has been managing that. And a lot of the push has been towards also growing the non-oil economy and diversifying into value add, renewables, petrochemicals. Well, they've been there, but they're being expanded. And then value add and non-oil, hence the sovereign wealth funds. PIF in Saudi Arabia has really expanded massively and is investing across the board. Their most recent impact on football and golf, yes, can't be underestimated. And as His Excellency mentioned, I mean, Oman, its strategic location, which avoids the Straits of Hormuz, is very important, and proximity to fast-growing markets like India and Africa. Yes. It's all changing. There's also quite a large population in the Middle East which really wants to live better. And the biggest change there is in Saudi, where really a big social liberalization program is really pushing demand for goods and for transformation. And the PIF is driving a lot of investment projects. There's, it's all
lots
moving.
Of movement.
Yes,
all
indeed.
Moving, like you said. So when you talked about diversification, of course, I saw all the heads nodding here. So we all know that that's really important for this region. But I want to come to you next. When we talk about the region breaking its historic dependence on oil and moving into other areas, technology is a key area. Tell me a little bit about that and how much FDI you're seeing in the technology sector in GCC.
Well, first of all, Mallika, thank you very much for having me. And as it was said before, in Your Excellency, you mentioned as well, there is a huge drive towards diversification. Technology plays a major role. We have seen this in Oman, we have seen this in the UAE, we have seen this in Saudi and other places. And let me give you some examples. UAE, for example, they have initiated a so-called Operation 300 billion initiative, which is earmarking to increase the contribution of the industrial side towards the GDP 3 times, so from 120 billion dirhams to 300 billion dirhams. And in order to achieve this target, what have we done? We have looked into the landscape of, for example, factories in the UAE. We have done more than 200 assessments of factories to understand what is the pattern of industrialization that has happened so far and what needs to be done. Adoption of Industry 4.0, energy efficiency was mentioned. Digitalization plays a major role. All, and I think we come to this later, with the umbrella of sustainability.
Yes.
How to deploy a diversification strategy and industrialization strategy in the Gulf region in a way that helps to also fight climate change. And we use, for example, we have just been working with our technology on deploying one of the biggest vertical farms in the world. It's called Bustanica, Emirates Flight Catering together with Crop One. They're producing 1 million kilograms of salad per year in this vertical farm, which is run with digital technology. They're deploying AI. They're saving 95% of water compared to regular agricultural ways of creating food. And that's part of one of the critical verticals as well, where investment is going in. It's food security. We have seen what happens with supply chain disruptions, where food security plays a major role, pharmaceuticals. So those are areas, and Ravi, you mentioned it. We have technology, but we also have ability and reach into very talented workforce.
Yes.
The Gulf is becoming a
Skilled
very
workforce,
attractive
yeah.
area for working. People are coming there, they see the security that is in the countries, and they also see this as future, as a place to live in the future. The reach into India, the reach into other countries, bilateral agreements that have been reached, driving this and contributing to the attractiveness of really getting FDI into those countries that are there. Yeah.
And if I could just build
Yes,
on one
of course,
point there,
Lisa.
because I think the point Helmut made is very important, but it's not just about the diversification and the investment in the region. Like, the Gulf is leading investments that will have an impact globally, and I think that's incredibly important, both on climate and sustainability, and I think hosting COP28 is a huge successor in that, and then also on food security, on pharmaceuticals. I mean, the region is playing very much a global leading position on this.
So Sherard, I want to come to you next. Now, the public sector in this region is big, it's robust, right? How should countries think about balancing large public state-owned enterprises while they're also really having this push to open up to the rest of the world and encourage more foreign investment?
Well, Mallika, there are state-owned enterprises and there are state-owned enterprises. And what Mohammed bin Salman has been doing in Saudi Arabia, what His Majesty Sultan Haytham's been doing in Oman, is to start to shake up the public sector, to modernize it, to bring in new management techniques. The big asset for the Gulf is a young, highly educated population. And perhaps I could give a shout out here for the women of the region who are educated, who are major contributors now to economic growth. I worked in Saudi Arabia for BAE Systems. I chair HSBC Oman. I work with HSBC across the region. And our female workforce is at least as productive as our male employees from across the region. So a very big asset. It's no coincidence that the investment attaché here at the Omani Embassy in London is a woman. And we need to use that human capital to develop it, much of it educated here in the UK, if not educated in the UK, at least educated to Western standards, and build on that. And there's plenty of scope for public-private partnerships, plenty of scope in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, for young startups in all sorts of technologies, not just fintech, but health tech, clean tech. We see an amazing energy there. Unlike other countries who've got declining, aging populations, this is overwhelmingly young, and it is a political imperative for the leadership across the region, not just to give these young people jobs, but to give them worthwhile jobs. These are educated, intelligent people who want to be challenged at work, and that's a big asset. The other thing that is different from, the public service, say, here in the UK, is that on the whole, it is properly paid, properly rewarded, properly resourced. So people are proud to be public servants. They're patriotic.
It's not the case in many other parts
not,
of the world.
Not
yes.
the case in other parts of the world we can both think of.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you brought up women in the workforce. I definitely wanted to talk about that, about reforms in the region. And we have seen a lot of progress when it comes to social reforms in the region. We've seen a great deal of improvement in women's rights, for example. Lisa, I wanted to ask you, how important do you think social reforms are in attracting FDI?
I think they're incredibly important, and I think a lot of credit has been given to the reforms that have already been made. And also not just with respect to foreign direct investment, but as Sheridan said, the young people in the country want jobs that matter. They also want to live in countries that reflect their emerging values. And I think listening to individuals as to what the countries are that they want to live in is very important. I think from a foreign direct investment perspective, the investment community has certainly been buoyed by reforms that have been made, would like to see those reforms stabilize, embed across the region, and then look to increase in reforms in particular areas where they think that will be relevant for their investment portfolios. So I think everyone is happy with the reforms as they are and would like to see that progress continuing. And I think good progress is being made and the right signals are definitely being made to the investor community.
I want to talk about sustainability. I know how quickly these panels go, but I want to make sure we do have a chunk of time for that. Now, most GCC states have committed to net zero commitments. We just heard that earlier as well. But many countries, actually not just in GCC, around the world, still have a long way to go to meet these targets and could well fall short. If they do fall short, is this something that's off-putting to investors? Helmut, maybe I'll come to you with a sustainability question first.
Well, I mean, it was mentioned before, sustainability in the Middle East now plays a major role. We have seen COP27 in Egypt, COP28 this year in the UAE being hosted. Those are areas, and Oman is also driving with the energy transition that has been just shared with the decarbonization of ports operations. So those are all areas that are extremely important, and they are really helping to attract foreign direct investment, because no one company can do it alone. You need an ecosystem of partners to actually address those areas that do the, for example, help supporting the digitalization of the grid in order to increase the share of renewable energy in the energy mix. You have transportation system. This was addressed as well. You have EV charging, charge point operators, a charge network. You see electric cars being manufactured in the kingdom. They're producing facilities which were not there years ago. 150,000 vehicles being produced in the country itself and then being rolled out. For this, there is investment needed. There's a whole ecosystem of companies needed, small, medium-sized enterprises, startup companies applying digital technology, digital twin technology. The industrial metaverse is something which digital savvy region like the GCC, they're very, very keen in not shying away of deploying artificial intelligence, not only on the government side, private sector, semi-government sectors. Everywhere you see that this is a really, really a focus area. And I think that is something which is really helping companies and especially the private sector, but also the academia, to see how they can support this drive also towards sustainability, which is a very critical aspect.
Ravi, I want to come to you next. How much of an opportunity is sustainability for investors?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
And also it's one of the regions that has the resources and the skills to deliver it, and has all the pledges that we've seen, net zero by 2040, 2050, 2060 is being pledged. And that's on the domestic economy and on the energy supply for the domestic economy to move towards net zero. But then there's also the opportunity in the oil industry of actually massively reducing carbon emissions per barrel. And there's a big move in that direction. I mean, the oil industry has been doing that for a while, but that has really been redoubled efforts in that front to improve that. And I think also the reality on the ground is, the world is moving towards renewables, yes, but as the chief executive of Shell just mentioned yesterday, it's not fast enough. And so there is really, oil and gas is still going to be an important sector for many years to come. And in the low carbon emission world, what we're tending to see is that projects that are expensive, they typically have higher carbon emissions as well. So in the GCC region, we see that actually carbon emissions per barrel are actually amongst the lowest in the world. So in a sense, the first projects that will drop out are the likes of the Angolas and the expensive oil, and the GCC is well positioned for longer term, even within the oil sector. And so it's this combination of trying to improve the oil sector and also drive the entire domestic economy into net zero. Yeah. So that's I think the way we're seeing things move across the world. It's not only a GCC phenomenon. I mean,
it's a global story.
It's a global story. I mean, Norway, for example, that is looked at as a very clean economy, but it's also a big oil exporter, and is working hard on reducing emissions per barrel. So that's the way we're going. And with the growth of all the emerging markets, we really can't see a complete move away from oil in the immediate future. So yeah. there's still some time to run, and it's more about cleaning the whole system.
Mallika, perhaps
yes.
I could just underline what Ravi had said. The key word is transition.
Yes.
It's about accompanying these great oil and gas producers on this journey. I remember in 2015, the group chief executive of HSBC called me into his office and he said, "Sherard, what's this COP thing in Paris?"
Ah.
And I said, "Well, it's actually rather important, Stuart.
Yeah.
It's about a change in the pace and pattern and direction of human economic development. And we, a great global bank, need to finance our oil and gas clients as they move on this journey. And we need to make money out of it, of course, but we must not leave any one of those clients behind." Right. And so I really want to endorse what Ravi's just said.
Quick question for all of you, and you can see the clock, but literally, if you can come up with one bullet point, are there any barriers to investing in the region, to bringing in more FDI into the region? Is there one thing you think could, if you had to press one lever to really open up the floodgates of investment, do you have any thoughts on what that might be?
Yeah, ignorance and prejudice.
Okay, yeah,
People
that's
need
fair.
to get out there and see for themselves. I shock my Omani friends, my Saudi friends, by saying this is a revolution that's underway. Now, the word revolution in Arabic, thawra, Majlis Qiyadat al-Thawra, makes them think of Gamal Abdel Nasser. But the revolution, this is an economic and social and cultural revolution that's underway. It's being led by people like the minister here. They're not natural revolutionaries, but they are leading an economic revolution, a social revolution. But people here, particularly those of you in the who failed to get out to Oman, you're behind the times.
Back to the tourism pitch, right?
If I could just, Mallika, link Sheridan's point to his excellencies, I would say, if I could just link Sheridan's point to his excellencies, I would say that it is the literacy of the world that needs to improve its literacy of the Gulf region and Oman.
Yes.
And we need to better understand the stability and the diversification that the region has to offer.
Yep.
Thank you
and
so
the
much.
opportunities that are there. I mean, you have
Yes.
smart cities being developed in Oman, in all the other. It's really the understanding what is happening and grasping this as huge opportunities.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your time. I knew this would go by far too quickly, but thank you so much.